In today's show, we're going to do part 2 of my building a secure app, the banking app. And what we're going to concentrate on today is we're going to concentrate on MFA. So for me, MFA in this app is going to be having a separate data source behind the scenes where it has multiple challenge questions. And so making sure that they can configure their own questions, but then once they've configured their own questions, also have the ability to validate that they actually did the questions. So should be fun. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with PowerApps 911. Those guys. And today we dive into part 2 of the banking app. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to concentrate on doing MFA, or a second authentication inside of PowerApps. Because the idea here is that with my apps, especially like I'm using them here in my house, everyone knows everyone's passcode to get on their own device. And once you're on someone's device, you can then just jump into their Power App. It's probably already authenticated. They're in the app as that person. So what we want to do is, before we let them do anything in the app, before we let them view their banking balances or edit the banking balances, we want to make sure that we challenge or ask again, hey, is this really you? And make them answer some type of security question that they set up, or even enter a PIN code. So that's what we're going to do in this episode. We're just going to work our way through. Remember, if you haven't watched part 1 already, you probably should do that, because you will be lost, because I'm not going to go over the whole app again. But we're going to kind of pick up towards the end of part 1's video and dive in with that. So I'll switch over to my desktop and just take a look. All right, so here we are back in PowerApps Studio. Like I said, we're going to pick up kind of roughly where we left off last time. I'm going to backtrack just a little. So what I've done thus far is I have added Ferguson, right? I went in, I said manage users, and I added Ferguson as a user. But if you look here, security configured is false. So Ferguson has not set up his stuff the first time, because I wanted to talk through those pieces of the puzzle. Also, remember, as we did this, right? So as part of creating it here, we said, all right, add Ferguson the cat. We did a bunch of different things. The key one is we added his information to a SharePoint list, right? So if we go over here to data sources, and so here's one of the 3, so security info, and we just use this little edit data trick to get us there faster. Remember, this is logged in as me, so I can see everything. So I see there's a record here for Chewy, there's a record here for myself, and there's one, the blank one right here is Ferguson's record. So security configured is false. And so then all of the questions, right? PIN, question 1, answer 1, question 2, and answer 2, those are all blank at this point, because we set up a blank record. Now you're probably thinking, how is that list set up? That is fair. So let's go right here real quick, list settings. And if we scroll down here, you can see that basically very simple, right? Default title column, I'm just using that as kind of a note field for like who did it. And then we're using, security configured as a yes, no, right? That lets me do true, false type stuff. The PIN is a number, a 4-digit number, but in SharePoint, it's just a number. And then these are all just single line of text. And then we have a user one. That is the actual person that can use the app. So in this case, Ferguson's record. So there's all that. So you could set up your own SharePoint list. Or remember, if you're a subscriber over at the curated library, you can download the whole app. There's also instructions for creating these same lists again, so you can build this all back up yourself. But there you go. So we added Ferguson. Ferguson has a blank record in this list. So now let's go over to the app as Ferguson. So I'm going to switch browsers. And so here you can see that Ferguson's greeted with get started. We talked about last time, there's if logic here that says, is your security configured? No, it's not. So it's going to take you to the screen. So that first time setup screen of configuring your access. And so here we're going to have drop downs for, what is your favorite color? It is blue. I don't know. I'm wearing a green shirt. You think I would have went with the green, but whatever. Question 2, do you like bananas? No, I do not. The rest of my family loves bananas. So weird. And then I'm just going to make the PIN 1, 2, 3, 4. And last time we talked about how this screen worked from the standpoint that the save button was only enabled if you'd answered all the questions, you had a PIN that was exactly 4 characters, all of that. Now, before we hit save here, though, let's switch back to mine. And so we need to get over to that screen. So let's just go to security info. And so this time let's talk about the save. So when we save this, what we're going to do is we're going to use a patch statement. And we're going to patch in the var user record. So that's the currently logged in user's record, which if I remember correctly, if I go back here to app on start, I believe this is where I put it. I hope this is where I put it. It is. So on app on start, I'm saying set a variable called var user record, and I'm doing a lookup to security info for the user's email equals the logged in user email. So that's how we're getting that one line. So that's when Ferguson logged in, we got that information, and it was blank. And so now that's how we knew we need to come to this screen to save it, because when we hit save here, we're going to say set var user record. So change that variable to whatever these new values are. But what are the new values? We're going to use patch. We're going to patch that SharePoint list. Var user record here, right? So this is saying this is the record in your SharePoint list that I want to edit. So this is how it knows to update Ferguson's record. And then we're setting answer 1 to the input, answer 2 to the input, question to the dropdown, question to the dropdown, pin to the value there. And then we're just hard coding security configured is true, right? So security is now configured. We don't have to, calculate that. We just know if they're hitting save, it's configured now. But the reason I'm putting it back into this variable, right? Because what happens, we're then going to navigate them to the welcome screen. But now when Ferguson presses it, his var user record, instead of a var user record, security configured, it was false, right? Because Ferguson's never done it. Now that Ferguson has configured it, this is going to update that variable, and so it'll know it's true. So when Ferguson clicks on the Get Started button again, Ferguson will be taken to the new View His Balance screen. So nothing too complicated here, right? This should be pretty straightforward for you guys. We're just patching, capturing it into a variable. Okay, so now that we've Ferguson's patched and the variable, let's go over here and hit save. So this is updating the list. If we were to go look back at our SharePoint list now, we would see Ferguson, there's a 111, color blue, bananas, no, Ferguson the cat. So Ferguson is updated and that security configured is true, which then says, okay, so back to Ferguson. Notice now you see a My Profile button. We didn't see that before. So how does that work? Well, let's go back as me so we can look at code. We'll go back to the welcome screen. So My Profile, all we're doing here is we have the visible set to var user record security configured. And since that's now true, that's why Ferguson sees that button. So this is why it was so important that when we updated the SharePoint list that we reinitialized the variable with the new values so we could start to have this full experience. So Ferguson could see the My Profile. He could go over there, change his stuff again. We're not going to do that. But now if Ferguson hits Get Started, now we challenge. Okay, so how does that work? So if we go back here and look, we're going to see, so if var record security configured is true, yep, we're going to do everything to here. So everything highlighted in blue. So we're going to set a variable, var random. So set a variable called var random and use the rand between function to set it between 1 and 2. So this is just one of those Power App functions I don't use very often, but this one let me specify get a random number between 1 and 2. And so then I'm saying, okay, so set that into numbers, either 1 or 2. Set the var wrong count to 0. Set var My Profile to false, and then navigate to security confirmation. Okay, so all of that got set. When Ferguson landed here, we're now going to act upon that. So if we go over here, let's see, what does it say Get Started for me? So here you can see, I left some of this stuff on the screen there so we could see. Anything in red would be deleted normally in the app, but I left this so we could visualize. But so var random, so in my case, it randomly chose 2. And then it's also looking here, says, hey, if var random equals 1, then check to see, does the var record for answer 1, so does the answer for answer 1 that came from SharePoint match the answer text here? So do these two compare? So does what they type in there match what's already stored in the variable? And in the case for me, you can see right now that in SharePoint, my who is your teacher is stored as red. That seems weird. No, it's question 2. So that would be if it was question 1, the answer would be red. So since we're not that, we're on answer 2. Oh, that makes more sense. So who is my teacher? Chewy is my teacher. So does that equal? It does not. So that's why you're seeing the word false there. So that's why if I go right here and say, who is your teacher? And I say, Nicola, then, you know, the red here, remember, we would take this out of the production app, but we can tell it's wrong, okay? So if I say continue, what happens? When you say continue, oh, we get a little nasty here. But what we needed to do was we needed to figure out if var random 1, if it was var random 1 or not. So it's not, it's random 2. So here we're going to say if, and then this if is going to spit out, is this true or false? We know right now what is false, right? Because we're now saying Chewy equals Nicola. No, right? So that's false. So since it's false, it would go down here. Let's see, it would set, well, it would not do that. It would go after here. And so it would set var wrong count to var wrong count plus 1. It would reset the answer and it would say, hey, if var wrong count is greater than 2, aka 3, then navigate to timeout. So we didn't show this in the last time. But so if I try to log in as Nicola once, wrong. All right, let's try my mom. 2 wrongs. And then now we'll try to say that cat is my person. So this will be my 3rd wrong. So because we hit my 3rd wrong, we are navigating them to timeout. So this particular screen doesn't let the user get away, right? There's nothing as a user I can do. I have to wait until the timeout runs and then it pushes back. So the timeout screen, which we had shown in a previous video a long time ago, what's happening on this particular screen is when we navigate here, this is set to auto start. Auto start is true. It is also display mode of view. So the user can't click it, they can just see it. And then on timer end, we're navigating them to the welcome screen. So this is how I put a timeout in there, right? So if I want to make them wait an hour or a day, they're probably just going to close the app. But you can set the timer's duration. Remember, that's in milliseconds. But you set the timer's duration for how long you want them to have to sit here, and then they go. But because there's no other navigation, right? We're just taking advantage in PowerApps. There is no way to leave the screen, right? There's no button. I can't click on this. I mean, right? Nothing's happening. They just had to sit here for the 10 seconds. That was how I was trying to stop people from brute forcing it. You know, you might also want to log that someone had that event. You might want to send an email. You might want to just lock them out of the app forever at that point. Like turn off security. I don't know, right? You have the control to do what you want there. But I just used a timer as a simple way to kind of lock them out for a minute. All right. So back over here as Ferguson, you know, why do you like bananas? I don't know why I answered no. I thought it said, do you like bananas? Because I can't read. I don't know. But so here, you know, we can just say no, the answer is true. And because the answer is true, Ferguson would power through and be able to see his balance. So back over here, we'll go get started. So yeah, so that's a lot of how this works. It's a little wonky donkey, right? But you hopefully can kind of power your way through it. I needed an if inside of an if because of the whole having multiple questions. If you were going to have 3 security questions or 5, instead of ifs, you might use switches, or sorry, not switches, the switch function. But that's really what you're after here. You'll also notice that I did a little if. So if you get it right, so this is the right path. If you get it correct, if the variable var my profile is set to true, then navigate them to security information, else navigate them to view balance. Because the other thing that I'm doing here is if we look at this, my profile button and we say on select, it is also, so set var my profile to true, set var random between 1 and 2, wrong count to 0, navigate to security confirmation, right? So whether you hit get started or my profile, either one of those buttons, you have to go through the authentication process. But instead of having 2 different screens that did the same exact thing, validating the security confirmation, I am just routing them and I'm using a variable to know that when they're done, do I want to send them to my profile or get started, right? You see that in the code here, right? So if the var my profile is set to true, then we would navigate them to security information because that's where they want to go, if not view balance. So using one screen. Now, I was originally tempted to use that security confirmation as a pop-up. I chose not to, though, because it had so many moving pieces. I didn't want to maintain all of those hidden pop-up pieces on the home screen. I could have. I found with this, because there was enough going on there, that I went ahead and did it this way. But there you go. So that's a way for you guys to get multi-factor authentication, that second security confirmation, forcing them to answer a question. The only other thing I didn't really cover here that might not have been readily available, I hard-coded the questions. So you could have pulled this out of a SharePoint list. It could have been a choices type of thing. I just hard-coded them in my app because I think that was what I was most likely to do. The other thing I would tell you is that the hard part of my questions is, the answers could be complicated, right? Like, so where's your favorite color? Yeah, that's red. That's not a big deal. But like if they answered, what is the best brand of car, right? Like you could get that wrong. Or this one down here, I think the worst one I did was, why do you like bananas, or describe Chewy in 3 words. Those are things that people are going to have a hard time remembering exactly what they typed. So we use that lower function to make them both lowercase, so we didn't have to account for them capitalizing the same. But if they're like, why do you like bananas? And you're like, I hate bananas. And then the next day you say, I don't like bananas, right? Like you're going to have a hard time matching. So you might want to be careful with open answers like that. It might be easier to like make them all yes, no questions or something like that if you're really going to implement this. Commonplace you might mess up. And then the PIN portion, the PIN is actually only for people that can manage balances. I left it here because I saw an argument where you might say, I want to just use PINs for all these people. So I wanted you to kind of see that infrastructure was here. But what we'll really find out, or I guess we can just show you right now, we got a minute, is if we go back over here, so remember this is logged in as me. When I go to manage users and I go to Ferguson, if I want to make a deposit for Ferguson, so amount is 12, comment is good kitty. And then down here, it was asking me for my PIN. Does anybody remember my PIN? I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4. It is. So what I was doing here was I was just saying display mode of this button is if this is blank, or if this is blank, or if this is blank, or the input value doesn't equal var user record.pin, right? That's the whole, once again, I got to carry that var user record around because that's checking that security record all the time. So if any of those things are true, then we go disabled. If not, we go display mode edit. So that's why when I filled all this out and I typed in the right pin, we were able to move. But that was how I was doing the pin confirmations. Other thing to remember, so and like we're going to talk about all the flows next week, right? I promise part 3 will be next week. I promise. But so with all the flows, we're going to talk about how all this stuff gets locked down. But I did want to remind you, like if we copied this URL, and if I go, right here, oh, I already had it open. Good job, me. If I refresh this page, then Ferguson can read and write his own security record. He has to, right? He set up his questions. He set up his PIN. He needs read and edit access to this. And so, but, he can't click on this and edit it, right? He gets yelled at here. If he tries to go to site contents, he gets yelled at here, right? Ferguson can't do anything. The same holds true. Let's just cheat real quick and show you, like, if we were to look, like I said, this is kind of a preview where we're headed for next week. Oh, no, not that one. Sorry. Site contents. Like if we go to balance summary, right? I see all the balance summaries. If we copy that URL and give it to Ferguson, then if Ferguson got the exact URL, Ferguson can see his balance, but Ferguson can't do anything with it because Ferguson only has read access to both the balance and the details list that go with the app. So, but that's next week. Flow, we're going to talk about how we lock all that down. All right. Whew. If you have any questions, comments, right, let me know. I don't, is this making sense? Right? This is hard for me. I told you it took me 2 weeks to build this app. And so I'm trying to break it down into different part videos and teaching you piece by piece. Remember, you can also, if you go out to the curated library, you can download this. You can also sign up for one of my training classes. But then you can get the whole working app or get training with me. Shane, stop it. Anyway, yeah. So next week we do flows. questions, ideas, future pieces you want to see, ways this video to evolve, leave them below. Cool? All right. With that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day. Before you go, be sure to click on the subscribe button over here so that way you'll be notified when new videos come out. If you need any help or you want to work together, whether your problem's big or small, check us out at PowerApps 911. We do it all. I rhymed. Or if you're looking for more formal training offerings, we have those linked up here somewhere. So check them out. Thanks and have a great day.